It looks like we're live, Lynn.
All right. Yes. Welcome, 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 everyone. Woo! Tuesday, February 16th, and it's a little past 2:22 p.m., but I heard one of my mentors, Sandra Yancey, saying today, we just have to work with what we have to work with and know that it will all turn out okay. And that is what I am sure about today, because today's Health, Wisdom, and Wealth TV show is Powerful Conversation for Living Your Best Life with the one and only JOE SIECINSKI. And I just have to tell you, Joe and I have known each other for about 10 years now. And we've worked together, we've networked together, we've referred people to each other. And he is not just knowledgeable, but he's one of those people that just wants to share everything that he knows. And what he knows is how to coach authors and entrepreneurs and CEOs and executive level people in corporate to be their best selves. And when I looked at this book, Brainshare, I was like, okay, this is totally him. He dropped every little nugget you could ever think of into this book. He's an author, educator, connector, and an expert in business and marketing consulting, leadership development, executive coaching, and marketing strategy. And I want to say, welcome, Joe. It is so great to be here with you today.
Lynn, it's my honor and privilege. It's great to see you. It's been a long time since we've actually been able to get face to face, but this is the next best thing. And thank you so much for allowing me to spend some of your time today.
Well, thank you for being here. um, your story, how you unpack some of these deep realizations about how your personal health and the health of your business are so interconnected. And the fact that, focusing on one thing is like tunnel vision, because you need to focus on all aspects, but there's a way to do it. And I love that because you're such an advocate for people doing their best business because they're in their best selves. And so I'm just going to jump right into it, and let's get to the first question I have for you here.
Sounds like a plan, Lynn.
Awesome. Well, Joe, I know a good bit about you. We've even gone to an MMA fight together. I'm just so blown away that I've got that as a memory. Thank you so much. But who are you? Tell our audience a little bit about your journey and about what you brought to writing the book. And by the way, I said it, I have to say it again. It is a great book. And so to everyone who's listening, watching, you got to get this book. It's one to have in your library. So tell us a little bit about you, Joe.
Well, I'll try to make it brief. I was actually born in France. Grew up in Arnold, Missouri. I spent time in South Korea, and then came out to California and worked for a little company called Hewlett Packard for 25 years in various roles, with a goal of retiring when I was 42. Now, I missed that goal because of the dot-com bust by about 3 years, but I retired, took a couple of years off, and got really bored. And that's when I started my consulting business. And as I started the consulting business, because I thought, oh, I'm really smart. I've got all this experience. I've been with HP. I've done sales. I've done marketing. I've done operations. But I was failing miserably. And I had the knowledge, but not the tool set. That's when I joined Action Coach and got the tool set, and then have taken that and expanded and wrote the book Brainshare. As I started working with clients, I found out that they've got all this stuff that you got to think about. You've got to be the CEO. You've got to be the CFO. You got to be VP of marketing. You got to think about your health. You got to think about your family. You got to think about this. How do you plug all these things in. And I went to some NLP training, and I kind of said, oh, well, maybe if you get modular and you start thinking about things in blocks and start putting together, it's like, okay, when I think about my health, first thing I do in the morning is I get up and I look at my calendar. What do we got on the agenda today? And then I do my meditation and then my exercise and then have a little bit of breakfast. And then, as I've looked at my calendar, I know or I have an idea of what the day is going to hold. But, there's always going to be stuff that happens. And that's what's so cool about, kind of planning the planning and putting things together is, things are going to happen, and that's okay. Well, that's kind of why I wrote the book. And you've got to be all these things. And you've got to also incorporate the wheel of life, because without our health, we have nothing.
Absolutely. It's key. And a lot of times we are so wrapped up in, what do I need for my business? What do I need to do for my business? Who am I without my business? And the thought of health being the golden thread that's woven through everything. And you said it, without your health, you have nothing, because our health is our greatest wealth. And that being said, Joe, share with our audience, do you have like a moment in time that was a wake-up call for you, or did you kind of see yourself from early years moving in this direction on this path?
Well, Lynn, ever since I was 14, I've been setting goals, 1, 3, and 5-year goals. Now, what's interesting about it is, I guess about 30 years old, I realized that I had never hit one of my 5-year goals. And what happens is, as you start going down this path of life and things change, you start going in this direction, and it's okay to change your goal or your objectives, or you might hit them earlier than you think, and then you pivot a little bit. I remember my goal back in the day was to make $30,000 a year and have a good job, and that was, oh, and you start, and so now, as you know, my goal is to own an island, make it a scuba diving resort, and an executive coaching retreat, and I'm on my path to that now. So, and but the world kind of, it doesn't all, you can't connect the dots until you look backwards. That's Steve Jobs. And life is a really cool ride, but one of the things that are critical through everything is your health. And I've watched so many business owners get so involved that they kind of forget about that, and it takes away from everything. So, it's your exercise, your meditation, not only your physical health, but your mental health.
And how was it for you? Did you have something that happened in your life? Were you always a health fanatic? Were you a sports geek in school, or?
I always loved sports. In high school, I wrestled, and if you know anything about wrestling, it is probably the most physically challenging sport well, at least to me, in the world, because you're using every part of your body. And I remember I used to run 12 miles a day, and was, had to maintain my weight, had to eat exactly right. And, I was a state champion. So wrestling was everything to me. And then I went in the military, and in the military, you've got to stay healthy. You're, hauling around a pack and running, 5 miles at least a day. And so through that, and then when I went to work in the corporate world, it was just a habit. And when you create good habits, then that's one of the things. And habits are critical for any type of progress or reaching your goals. And I continue to set goals, both my health goals and my business goals and my life goals, and driving towards them, maintaining them, and then creating good habits. Good habits are hard to create. Good habits are hard to create and easy to break. Bad habits are easy to create. So you've got to create those good habits, and that's a critical success factor in my opinion.
Now, you talked about the wheel of life. And, I want to focus on that for just a moment. How critical is it for you in looking at the wheel of life and helping your entrepreneurs to connect those dots?
That's critical because if you have one area that's sticking out, it's kind of like a wheel. If you've got a big blip here or a big dip here, that wheel doesn't roll so well. So it's balance. I mean, so many cultures talk about balance. And what's interesting to me is balance. Here I'll speak of in the States, we think of balance as, oh, it's balanced. Well, there is no balance. Balance means constant adjustment. If you're trying to balance something, if you're trying to balance it, you've got to adjust it to keep it going, because things happen. And so we're always constantly adjusting to get close to the balance. And stuff's going to happen to put challenges in our path, and we've got to adjust for that.
Life is one of our biggest teachers and our biggest supporters in
Yeah,
our growth. And I know you talk a little bit about that in the book.
yes.
And I want to just, you say, I found something I wanted to bring up, and that is, with balance, productivity, and just the whole brain share concept. Talk to us a little bit about, the health of the brain as it relates to specifically the health of your business.
So one of my mentors once told me, the biggest competitor you have is right between your ears. And that is so true. We all have limiting beliefs and values. And when we find ways to break through those, and to me, that's lifelong learning. I mean, if you want to earn more, learn more. And there's so many, I mean, there's so many books and ways of education that we can expand the way we think, but we limit ourselves more than anything else. And anything is possible. You just got to find a way to do it. Set your goals. The hardest part a lot of times is setting your goal. When you set your ultimate goal and allocate the time and put the plan in place to get there, it becomes simple. But when we don't have the goal and we don't have that drive of where we want to go, we kind of just vacillate around and around and around. And the key in my mind is setting your goal, putting the plan in place, plan your work, work your plan. I mean, we've all heard these these before, but create your habits, set your goals, create your habits to get there. It's not
So
new, but it's simple, but it's not easy.
I agree. I agree. There's one of those Jeff Olson underlying things in The Slight Edge,
Yeah.
just tiny little things that make the biggest of differences. And so, do you recommend to your clients to like include mindful eating? You got lunch, get your lunch. Tell us a little bit about that.
So, well, to me, it's all about routine and creating a system and create those habits. So, what's your breakfast look like? What does that need to look like for where your health is today? Because everyone's different. I eat fruit. I snack on nuts and have my routine of the breakfast, the lunch. I eat lots and lots of vegetables now. In my younger days, I ate lots of protein because but now I'm a little more mature, and my diets had to change and to stay healthy. And my exercises has changed for me because I don't do the robust, 5 miles as fast as I possibly can. I walk a lot more and more, so as we evolve and change, our eating habits need to change, our exercise habits need to change, and our thinking habits need to change. And that creates your routines, and routines create the path to where we want to go.
I love it. I love it. And one of the things that you mentioned was our thinking habits. So tell us a little bit about what you mean by our thinking habits.
Well, we all have self-talk, and we all have negative self-talk, and we all have positive self-talk. So the more positive self-talk we can put in, and I mean, there's a ton of books that talk about, what goes in is what creates us. So I remember Darren Harding once said something to the fact that I'm paraphrasing. He goes, "How many of you want to get rid of a lot of the problems in the world and this and this and this and this?" And everybody's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." He goes, "Well, turn off the news." Because sometimes that news is nothing but negative connotations that go in our brain and make us think in that negative connotation. So what are you putting into your mind, just like what you're putting into your body with the foods you eat? What are you putting into your mind to make it healthy? And that's
And
something that,
the news
and so
isn't it.
the news is usually not it. And by the way, doesn't really matter. 2 days from now, the news is going to be different. And did it affect anything? Probably not. But reading something, like Jeff Olson or Deepak or something like that, that's actually going to make a lasting impact in the way you think is much more healthy for your mind and your body. Deepak's one of my favorite. Chopra.
Mine too. Mine too.
He is awesome, awesome,
Absolutely.
awesome. And because I mean, when you really think about it, 99% of what we do is driven by our subconscious mind. And we can actually influence our subconscious mind consciously. So when we consciously help align our subconscious mind with where we want to go, then it becomes a habit and we drive forward. If we put negative and not so good things into our subconscious mind, it's going to take us in a direction we may not want to go.
And that's the real importance of systems. You know, a lot of times when you talk to entrepreneurs about systems, they're thinking about systems in their business and, as it relates to managing my calendar from 9 to 5. When what I'm hearing you talk about is the bigger systems, like your system of looking at what you have to do for the day to determine your biggest priorities, either the night before or first thing in the morning, so that you
No,
have that.
both. Because now this is I hear this one a lot, and sorry I didn't mean to interrupt
That's
you, but
okay.
this one I get passionate about because yeah, we look at the calendar in the morning, say, okay, here's what I need to accomplish, and at the end of the day, you review your day. How did it go? Rate it on a scale from 1 to 10. What do I need to change for tomorrow? And then look at tomorrow, or maybe even the next day. What happens at night when you look at what you need to accomplish for tomorrow? Your subconscious mind gets engaged, and your subconscious mind, while you're sleeping, will help process information, and you'll come up with solutions that you never thought about before. This is where I call it the shower effect. You ever get in the shower and like, oh, I got these brilliant ideas, and let me write it down. Let me write it down. I knew a client that had actually a whiteboard in the shower. This is why we need to do the first thing in the morning and the review the day and look at the next day. It allows us to utilize our subconscious mind to solve problems. So in that routine of the morning and then the food that we're eating and scheduling that routine allows us to become better than we are today.
I remember in the NLP training, we were talking about um, how you allow your brain to process
That's
all
right.
of this stuff when you're actually even doing something else. So you know how you're
Yes.
doing something and then that thing comes up and you're like, oh my God, I gotta write that down. And that's in the middle of this, but there are certain systems that you can do for yourself. Tell us about your take
Here's
on that.
here's the here's the coolest one of the coolest things. When you're exercising, your brain is actually working 30% more than when you're actually trying to focus on something else, because it allows our brain to it gets the blood flowing and everything else, and our subconscious mind works more when we're sleeping and when we're exercising than any other time. So by exercising, it actually allows us to think better, think more clearly, come up with things. So these things need to be in your routine, in your calendaring system.
Awesome.
And
Yes.
that's what I talk about in the book is, what is your calendaring system? What are the things you need to accomplish? I've got date night scheduled with my wife. Because if I don't schedule it, guess what? It doesn't happen. When my son was younger, I made sure I had time allocated to spend with him. Otherwise, it kind of, all of a sudden he's 26 years old, which he is today.
Wow, really?
Yes, just amazing. And he's 6'6". You would not even recognize him.
Oh
And
my
such
goodness.
a great, great kid. And my granddaughter, 7 months old now, or 8 months old now. So
Oh, precious.
but we're humans, and we think different. So by creating systems within for your life, it allows you to accomplish more than you can ever imagine, and open up your brain, and buy an island. I mean, when I was a kid, could never imagine. I could never imagine some of the things that I've done so far, and I'm not done yet.
I hear you. I hear you. And yes, we will be talking about this island because there's some retreats that are on my plan and schedule. So wishing
I
you
for
all the best.
20 years now, I wanted that scuba diver, and I can. The key is, like Napoleon Hill says, like the clearer the picture in your mind's eye, the easier it is to achieve. And when you have that clarity, all of a sudden the steps you think are going to get there. Now that doesn't mean you're not going to change around and things happen. I just reread the Alchemist, which is just a phenomenal read. From Pablo, that
Yeah,
you're going down this path, but all of a sudden you needed that to actually get to where you wanted to go.
yeah.
So, and Steve Jobs said you can't connect the dots until you look backwards. There's things that the universe is more powerful than we could ever imagine. And when we allow ourselves to be in synchronicity with that, that's when life gets cool. Because the world wants you to have more, to enjoy life, to experience the things that you want to experience. All you got to do is get on that right bus at the right time and start moving towards it.
Yes. And a lot of times it means saying no to some things that we might think are, because it's here and it's inviting, it's okay to do. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Okay, so I'm going to start with, this, but what is your most valuable asset?
My time.
Time. You can make more money, but you can't make more time. When today is gone, it's gone forever. You can't get it back. Now, I know Einstein said time travels, but we haven't figured it out yet. So
We're still
time
learning
is,
the bending reality thing.
yeah, yeah. And when that happens, I might have to change my philosophy a little bit here. But at least for this space and time, how we utilize it, and we don't think about this. How am I going to utilize my time? What am I going to spend it on, or what am I going to invest it in, or how am I going to use it to get to where I want to go? And this is a lot of what the book's about, is where do I need to be spending my time? Where do, I got to spend time with my family. I got to spend time with this. I got to spend time with my spiritual aspect of things. How do I do all this? But when we put it together in a routine and break things down, it becomes simple. The ultimate complexity is simplicity.
Amen. One of my friends often said, Lynn, I love you. We are so much alike. It's like, brilliant. And brilliant people, for some reason, want to make everything so huge and complicated. When the bigger brilliance is bringing it in, conciseness brings clarity, clarity brings the people who want to hear you and the people that will actually also spend money on what it is that you have to say or do in working with them. And, there are a lot of myths around building business and building your best business and your best health. And give us one of the biggest myths that you've heard that you disrupt and bust.
Well, I'm going to kind of bounce around a little bit. It was funny that somebody said, "Oh, so Joe, you're a consultant." I said, "No, I'm not a consultant. Consultants are based, and consultants want to make everything complex so that they can justify their value. My job as a coach is to make it simple so you can implement it. So the simpler things are, the easier it is. Building a business is the hardest thing that there is to do, especially if you don't have the tools or the processes or the systems. Now, when you break it down, and it's like anything, when you break it down into chunks, it's easy. So what we've developed is building a business is like building a house, and we've broke it down into chunks to build it. So when you break things down and keep it really simple, life gets easier. It's never easy. It's not a challenge. But if you don't, then you're going to get stuck someplace and not learn how to break. You have to figure out how to break through. And breaking through is actually easier. Find somebody else that's been there before.
All right. Yes. Yes. And thus the value of finding a good coach, somebody
Yes.
that's walked the road that you want to walk. And how do you bring that into your brain share concept? What is the formula for brain share at the maximum altitude?
Well, so when you start thinking about things, you start breaking it into modules. Where do you need to be today? Everything is evolution. So today you might be spending 50% of your time on operations or 50% on sales, but that understanding that as your business goes and evolves, it will change, and be willing to make those changes to get to where you want to go. Make that roadmap or that path or whatever you want to call it to where you want to go, and understand reaching your goals is not like from point A to point B. It's like from point A, whoa, and then we get to point B. So, but putting together the systems and the processes and the tools to reach that and keep it simple is a key success factor. And
That's
learn from
awesome.
other people. My dad once told me, Joe, there's two ways to learn. You can learn from your own mistakes or you can learn from others. Joe, why do you always got to learn from your own? And that's when I actually started reading books going, wow, this person has been there before. That's going to prevent me from making a mistake. Just like in our history, if you don't know your history, you're going to repeat it. Learn about these things. I mean, it's so easy to get information now compared to when I was a kid, where we had to go to the library and the Dewey Decimal System and find the books and check it out. Now we've got internet and Google, and I mean, our information is so much, it's accessible and like it's never been before. YouTube and so I get people that, oh, I don't like to read. I don't then watch a YouTube, listen to an audiobook. The world now, we have so much access to information that we've never had before. When you take advantage of it, it becomes pretty cool, and that includes our health. I mean, back in the day, it's like, oh, you must eat, meat and potatoes, and now we're like, oh, maybe not so much now. So understanding what goes into your body is what will drive your health.
Well, I am so glad you brought that in, because one of the questions that I have really been chomping at the bit to ask you is, what is one of your favorite meals?
This may sound silly, but I love vegetables. And I used to be, I used to love my steaks and everything, but I get a stir fried vegetable platter with some spicy and to me that is great. And I love my fish. I love all food, I think, but my tastes have actually changed over the years where I'm enjoying fruits and vegetables more than I ever have in the past. And I've cut out most of my red meat. It just doesn't agree with me the way it used to. And of course, I love my fish. So I actually kind of plan out that, and um, it becomes simple. I can't eat the red meat that I used to. I don't. It, and the sweets and everything once in a while is okay, but I actually really crave fruits and vegetables, which is strange now. And my body craves it. So what I think's happening is the your body knows what it needs. Listen to it. Just like when you're pregnant, I've never been there, but my wife's told me you crave food because your body's telling you you need that kind of food in your system. Listen to your body. If it's telling you chocolate, you might not want to listen so much.
Ah, I totally agree. And then, it really does only take a short period of time for your taste buds to start changing. And you start because your body says, oh, yes, I recognize that. And it's good for me. I want more. And so
Yes.
it's going to position itself like you would position yourself in your business to be aligned with what comes, the right things that come to you.
Well, and it's just like celebrations. So when you celebrate things that happen that are good in your business or your life, it relieves those endorphins that makes you want to do it again. Well, your body's the same way. Oh, I got that. Hey, that was good for me. Let me do that again. Let me do that again. And we have self-correcting mechanisms in our body when we utilize them. It's when we ignore them that the challenges start happening.
So,
And
Joe,
sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, and the other thing that we've got to remember is genetics too, because we are all disposed to certain things based on our genetic history, and when you're aware of that, it allows you to put plans in place to minimize that effect, or that negative effect, or maximize the positive effect.
Exactly. I couldn't agree with you more. So, as we are getting to our time here, is there some, real genuine wisdom that you believe is important to share with our audience right now that you think it's going to have a positive impact and make a difference in someone's life and business?
Well, I want to say this: set your goals, and whatever you think your goal is, 10x it, and say, how would I do that? And then that first goal might be a lot simpler to achieve than you ever thought. So to me, it's about setting goals and then think, well, 10x it. You know, I had a client the other day. I want to make $1 million. I said, well, why not 10 millions? What would you have to do to make 10 million? And we put the plan in place to make 10 million. All of a sudden, the plan to make 1 million was really simple. Make your brain just explode and open it up and say, what would happen if? I love that. What would happen if? To, and then life gets easier. Our mind is what holds us back. Open it up, stay healthy, eat right, get your exercise, and find a coach like yourself to help out.
Well, thank you so much. This was so awesome. And thank you to our audience for joining us. It's really been fun to talk to Joe about Brainshare and the health of your brain and your business, how they interconnect, how they need to interconnect, and how you can do it in a way that helps you to evolve into your biggest business and your best self. Joe, thanks for being here with us today.
Lynn, my honor and privilege. Thank you so much. It's been an honor knowing you all these years, and I look forward to many, many more to come.
Amen. I second that.
So
So thank you everyone for joining us. I am VLYNN Hawkins. I'm your host of the Health, Wisdom, and Wealth Show. Join us next week and every Tuesday, 2:22 p.m. Eastern, to hear us in the conversations, the powerful conversations about living your best life and having your best business, because we are here to share what we know and what we're passionate about so that you can make the best in the direction that you're headed. It's not about the complexity of it. It will look complex, but there's ways to make it simple and easier to do. So once again, I'm VLYNN Hawkins. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.